Hi, Captain Peter Cutsey. Our briefing today, steep turns. The objective is to familiarize the pilot with airplane characteristics and improve the instrument cross-check. Note, during training, 45 degrees of bank is used. It is not intended that the pilot bank greater than 25 to 30 degrees for normal or non-normal procedures. If so equipped, the GPWS gives momentary bank angle alerts up to 45 degrees. All right, let's look at a little bit on entering the turn. Stabilize the speed at 250 knots on a heading and altitude. Now, normally your instructor, or I would start you off on a cardinal heading, perhaps a heading of 360 degrees or 090 degrees, and advise you that we'll be turning through 180 degrees. And once we roll out on that heading, we continue the rolling right through to the other direction, 45 degrees of bank, and return to the original heading. That's normally how we do it. The tolerances that you have are 10 knots in speed, 10 degrees in heading, as far as when you roll out is concerned, and 100 feet of altitude. Those are the normal tolerances acceptable. Do your best to be as accurate as you can, and I'll give you a few tips on how to do so. We normally do steep turns at 10,000 feet, 250 knots, and we will be somewhere around 60 tons for this demonstration. Use a normal turn entry. An increase in pitch is required as the bank angle is increased to maintain a constant altitude. An increase in thrust is required to maintain constant speed. So normally your instructor will set you up with all auto flight systems engaged so that you can actually see the pitch reference for 250 knots and you can see the power setting. Now, for 60 tons at ISA temperatures at 10,000 feet and 250 knots, you will find that you'll be pitched up around 2.5 degrees. We'll have a look at that in a second. Another little tip is that just before you enter the turn, increase N1 by approximately 3%, just before. That way you will be able to maintain your speed throughout the turn. You won't lose any speed and you won't have to add during the turn. That is a technique. All right, so let's go back to the main menu. And during the turn, pitch and thrust are the same as for a normal turn. Trimming during the maneuver is not recommended, so make sure that you're in trim before you start. One reason for that is as you roll out, if you trim while you were in the turn and you roll out, you'll climb a lot. Varying the bank angle makes pitch control more difficult. If an altitude loss becomes excessive, reduce the angle of bank, pitch up to regain the altitude, then reinstate the 45 degrees. Smooth and positive control is required. You'll find there's a fair amount of back pressure required once you are in the turn to maintain your altitude. Also use the flight path vector. Remember, we've already talked about the flight path vector, and if we hadn't talked about it at this stage in your training, this would be part of the briefing. A rapid instrument scan is required to detect deviations early enough to be corrected by small adjustments. Your VSI is an IVSI with feeds coming off of the IRS. So it's an instant IVSI. So before your barometric altitude will move, you'll see a movement in the IVSI. So make small corrections and we'll point out pitch references in a moment. Higher than normal pitch, attitude, and thrust is used during the turn. Roll out at the same rate as you used with normal turns. Rollout normally should begin 15 to 20 degrees prior to the desired heading. Normally, a rule of thumb is you start rolling out at 1/3 your bank angle. So 45 degrees, 1/3 is 15 degrees. I find in my experience that 20 degrees works a little better. It gives you a little more lead time, and the pilot monitoring quite often will miss the 15 degrees, and by the time he or she says 15 to roll out, you will end up going through. So I strongly suggest you ask your pilot monitoring to advise you 20 degrees to roll out. That's a personal preference, and it works much better, I think. All right, let's have a look at some pitch references, etc. Here we are at 10,000 feet. The MCP altitude was set to 10,000, and we're boxed at 10,000. And the speed on the MCP was set to 250 knots, and we are indicating 250 knots. Remember, the first pitch scale is 2.5 degrees, and every pitch scale after is another 2.5. So 2.5, 5, 7.5, 10. Here we are sitting at 60 tons in level flight and approximately 58% N1, let's say, under these conditions. And if you notice, you're pitched up here at about 3.5 degrees. So I'll point out to you as we get going, what you want to do is actually set the aircraft, the center of the aircraft symbol, when you're in a 45 bank turn. That's the center of the symbol. When you're in the 45 bank turn, that's where it becomes a diamond. Well, the top part of the diamond, if you touch it right on the 5-degree pitch line, there's the 5-degree pitch line. If you touch the tip of the center of the aircraft symbol on the 5-degree pitch line, you'll maintain your altitude. And definitely use your flight path vector. And we don't have a picture of it here, but remember that when we talked before, the flight path vector in a nil wind condition, when you are in, let me just get the proper drawing here. We'll just draw a little one here and just see. Undo. All right, so your flight path vector, we'll undo that, and it would be on the horizon, like so. And let's just have a look at what it would look like. I've just enlarged it a little bit. We'll put, there's the tail, and we will put little wings out here. And the flight path vector in level flight, remember, will be on the horizon. So use your flight path vector. You'll be on the horizon, and if you keep it on the horizon this way throughout the turn, you will maintain your altitude. Okie doke. Let's go to the next slide. There you are at 30 degrees, and there is the tip of the center of the aircraft symbol. You'll find that when you get to 45 degrees, which is your steep turn that we do them at 45 degrees, which is here, if you keep the tip of that center of the aircraft symbol touching the 5-degree pitch line, you'll be fine. Simultaneously keeping the flight path vector on the horizon, as we mentioned. As you roll through 35 degrees of bank, you will get the oral warning bank angle, and the indicator, the pointer will turn to amber. So as you go through 35, which is about here. Now here you are established at 45 degrees of pitch, and we're just getting settled here. We're just slightly above the 5-degree pitch line. You'll find once you are settled, you'll actually be flying with the tip of it just below. And this picture doesn't represent that. Here it does represent it as you're rolling out. And once you're rolled out, you will be back to your original pitch reference. So that's basically the steep turn. Your instructor will have you do one turn through 180 degrees and immediately roll in to the opposite direction back to the initial heading. The pilot monitoring, you must brief the pilot monitoring to set your heading for you once you're given the heading for the turn and to call the rollout. 20 degrees ahead in bank, or 20 degrees, I should say, in heading, would be a good lead to roll out right on your original heading. All right. Techniques. Attitude indicator. The attitude indicator is reliable for accurate and pitch and bank information throughout the turn. Vertical speed indicator, as we mentioned, IRS vertical speeds are reliable during the turn. So the initial movement or the first movement of the IVSI, you should do something about it. The altimeter, cross-check the direction and rate of change and make smooth minor adjustments to the pitch for altitude correctness. And remember, use the flight path vector in conjunction with on the center of the aircraft symbol. All right, that's it for steep turns. Enjoy, and I'm sure you'll do a great job. See you on the next video. And if you would like a briefing online, get your partner organized on Zoom, call me or email me, and I'll be glad to give you my time and experience for free. Enjoy flying. Be passionate about it.